I originally had something completely different planned for the third and final episode of The Ladies Who Punch. But after sitting down and having a good hour conversation with Michelle K. Hasluck, I knew then and there on the drive home that the entire third episode needs to be dedicated to telling you about this incredible woman.
I don't like to use the term pioneer because I'm kind of like, if I didn't do it, someone else would have done it eventually. More of a situation of circumstance and stubbornness.
Michelle Hasluck is the first lady of Australian wrestling, quite literally. For a very long time, she was the first and only female wrestler in Western Australia.
I started my training in 2002 and I had my first match in 2003. What have I won belt-wise? I won like the AAW women's belt. I had my own belt, which was the unofficial women's championship belt at Explosive Pro Wrestling.
If anything that I learned from this experience, Michelle is the definition of the word humble, and she is selling herself short here. She is 3-time Women's Wrestler of the Year, 1-time Manager of the Year, 1-time Grand Slam Club winner, 1-time AAW Women's Champion, and 1-time Southern Hemisphere Wrestling Alliance Match of the Year winner. She has wrestled for 19 separate promotions across the country from Perth to Tasmania. Odds are, if you were a wrestler and you wrestled somewhere between the years of 2003 to 2016, you have bumped shoulders with this icon. Like a lot of people, Michelle grew up watching wrestling with her family and fell in love with it on TV.
I loved the Rockers, had the biggest thing for Shawn Michaels since I was like tiny, mullet and all. So there's all these... And then, obviously, Attitude Era and everything hit, and I'm just like, yes, I'm doing this.
Quick definition with this one. Wrestling is divided into eras, and these all have very punchy names, such as the Golden Age, the Ruthless Aggression Era. We are currently in what people are calling either the Women's Era or the PG Era. The most popular era by far, however, is the Attitude Era, which was the late 90s to the very early 2000s. She was inspired by the few mold breakers she saw at the time, women who were often shunted for screen time in favour of their more blonde, long-legged counterparts, but made a valuable impression on her. Women like Molly Holly and Alundra Blaze. Michelle made it very clear what her ambitions were in the wrestling industry, and that was to create storylines and characters that at the time were unlike anything seen on television.
They are so different and so badass. I want to do that. They're women who just look like they don't give a fuck. And I was like, I want to do that. I'm sick of seeing women always like the Miss Elizabeth kind of style, always being very meek and minor. And no, I want to do things that look awesome. That's what I want to do. So, yes.
So not the Sables, more the...
I appreciate what people like Sable and Sunny and stuff did, because they obviously have a spot in wrestling. I believe that wrestling is like a circus and you got the 3 rings and there's going to be something for everyone. That wasn't for me. I was raised by a single mother who's always like, you can do whatever you want. And that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to wrestle. And if I had no women here, why can't I wrestle?
One of the things I quickly learnt about Michelle is just how fantastic she is at storytelling, both in and out of the ring. Her opinions on wrestling are so nuanced, and yet her delivery, like her in-ring style, is killer.
And what's your man? You seen your man? He ugly. Like, you know, it was like, what? Have you seen the people you're fighting over? This is not in any way, shape, or form realistic. These women are stunning, and that guy's gross. Like...
You can just see how much she cares about the women's wrestling scene and how excited she gets when the people within it thrive. I kind of geeked out when she had told me that she has not only met, but trained with a wrestler who is arguably the most successful Australian wrestler currently in the world. She's on the WWE. If you've got TikTok, you may have seen her. She's currently the lock screen on my phone. Her name is Rhea Ripley.
Rhea Ripley, oh my god, love her so much, and she's doing so freaking awesome. Love her. So I did a show with her, like PWWA, years ago, and met her. Lovely, lovely person. Saw her wrestle for the first time. Heard she'd only been training for like a couple of months or whatever at that point. And it's like, she is phenomenal. She's going to go places. You can see that, and just seeing how comfortable she is with herself and stuff. It's just like, that's the kind of role model that girls need. Like, my girls love watching her, and I think that's phenomenal.
Sadly, not only being the only women wrestler in a whole state for 10 years, but also being an Indigenous woman that is not the pencil-thin body standard that was expected in the early 2000s, Michelle had to cop some pretty harsh abuse and had to get some thick skin quick.
Like, I'm Indigenous, right? So
Yeah.
think of like the women that I might have had growing up. So I had Jacqueline, I had Jazz, Jacqueline. You know, as far as body shapes go, it was like Molly Holly, Mickey James, both picked on for being a perfectly healthy weight range, by the way. How would that make me feel as I'm training, getting ready to have my debut match and being like, they're going to call me fat. They're going to call me ugly. And the amount of times where it's like being called a whore and fat and unattractive and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, I'm a lot more over it now and the audience is a lot better now. But when I was younger, yeah, all that kind of stuff would get slung at me.
Michelle has said that her thick skin came from the women around her. Growing up as a white-passing Indigenous person left her at times feeling out of touch with any culture. But now she's inspired by her family. And to be completely blunt, I don't know if I've ever been as inspired by the drive and resilience of a person like that of Michelle Hasluck.
I've met my aunties and stuff as well. It's kind of like I'm actually very proud of the fact that these are the strongest women I've ever met in my life. And they're related to me. Why the wouldn't I want to represent that?
Michelle is an inspiration to the entire wrestling organisation of Western Australia, and I hope Australia too. This woman deserves all the respect this industry has to offer, and all she wants in return is good matches.
It's just cool to see people being more accepting of different styles of wrestling and having hybrids of those wrestling. I love that. And I just want to keep seeing people. I don't care what gender and stuff you are, man. I just want to see good wrestling. I just want to see good stories being told in the ring.
Thank you so much for listening to The Ladies Who Punch. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed creating it. A extra special thank you to Ben Robinson, the marketing team of Explosive Pro Wrestling, Stella Nix, Lizzie Maximus, Michelle K. Hasluck, and Astrid Arcana, the artist who created all the awesome thumbnail art you see. And to you, the listener, thank you for letting me divulge my passion that I've had for a good few years now. Go support local wrestling!